Have you ever felt like your heart was speaking a language heaven couldn't understand? You've whispered the same prayer for months, maybe years, watching couples around you find their person while you remain in what feels like divine silence. The waiting stretches longer than you imagined possible, and somewhere in the quiet hours, a question forms that you're almost afraid to ask. What if God has forgotten about the deepest desire of your heart? What if you're being overlooked while everyone else receives their blessing? But here's what might surprise you. What if that silence isn't absence at all? What if every unanswered prayer has been preparing you for something so sacred that rushing would have robbed you of its beauty? Tonight, I want to share 8 profound signs that God is preparing you for marriage. Not just any relationship, but a covenant that reflects His heart. Because sometimes what feels like delay is actually divine design, and what looks like abandonment is really sacred preparation. You know that feeling when you're alone in your apartment on a Friday night, scrolling through photos of engagement announcements and wedding celebrations, wondering if joy like that will ever find its way to your story. The silence feels heavy. Your prayers echo back without answers. You've asked God to send someone, to open doors, to write your love story, but the pages remain blank. And in those moments, doubt creeps in like shadows at dusk. Maybe you're not worthy of that kind of love. Maybe you've missed your chance. Maybe God's plan doesn't include the relationship your heart craves. Would you still trust divine timing if it meant waiting longer than you hoped? Would you still believe in His goodness if the answer took a different shape than you imagined? These questions aren't signs of weak faith. They're evidence of a heart that longs for something deeper than surface connection. They reveal a soul that refuses to settle for anything less than what heaven has designed. And maybe that's exactly where God needs you to be. Sometimes the very thing that feels like punishment is actually preparation. Sometimes what looks like rejection is really protection. Sometimes the closed doors aren't keeping you from your blessing, but preparing you to receive it with wisdom instead of desperation. Consider this: every season of singleness is a classroom where God teaches lessons that can only be learned in solitude. In the quiet, He shapes your character. In the waiting, He builds your foundation. In the longing, He purifies your motives. Because here's the truth that might change everything. God isn't just preparing someone for you, He's preparing you for them. The first sign that God is preparing you for marriage is this: your relationship with Him is deepening in ways that surprise you. You find yourself craving His presence more than human companionship. Prayer becomes less about asking for what you want and more about surrendering to what He knows is best. You're discovering that your identity isn't tied to your relationship status, but anchored in His unchanging love. This spiritual maturity isn't about how long you've been walking with God. It's about the quality of that walk. It's about recognizing His voice above the noise of loneliness. It's about choosing His peace over the pressure to force timing. When your heart is satisfied in Him first, you stop looking for someone to complete you and start preparing to complement the right person. The second sign is emotional healing from past wounds. Maybe you've been through heartbreak that left you questioning your worth. Maybe betrayal taught you to build walls instead of bridges. Maybe disappointment convinced you that hoping was too dangerous. But something beautiful happens when you allow God into those broken places. He doesn't just heal the hurt, He transforms it into wisdom. You begin to see that your past pain wasn't wasted. It was preparation. Every lesson learned in loneliness becomes strength for future love. Every boundary you've built protects what matters most. Every scar becomes a testimony of survival. You're not bringing broken pieces into your next relationship. You're bringing wholeness that only comes through surrender. The third sign is a shift in your desires and motivations. Your longing for marriage begins to change from desperation to anticipation. Instead of wanting someone to fill the empty spaces, you desire someone to share the fullness God has created in you. Instead of needing validation, you want partnership. Instead of seeking completion, you're preparing for contribution. This transformation happens slowly, like dawn breaking across a dark sky. One day you realize that your prayers have changed. You're no longer begging God to send anyone. You're asking Him to prepare you for the right one. You're no longer focused on when it will happen, but on who you're becoming while you wait. Maybe that's why it's been taking so long. Because heaven has been building your heart first. Because the love God has planned for you requires a foundation strong enough to hold it. Because the person He's preparing for you deserves the best version of who you're becoming. Our minds crave quick answers and instant gratification. But faith teaches us to sit with questions until peace becomes the answer. It shows us that the most beautiful things in life aren't rushed but cultivated. They aren't forced but received. They aren't demanded but trusted. Maybe it was never about finding the right person at all. Maybe it was always about becoming the one who could recognize them when they arrive. The fourth sign unfolds like morning mist lifting from still water. You begin to notice a profound contentment in your own company. Not the kind of contentment that comes from giving up or settling into loneliness, but a deep satisfaction that flows from knowing who you are when no one else is watching. You've learned to enjoy dinner alone without feeling sorry for yourself. You've discovered the beauty of Sunday afternoons spent in quiet reflection rather than frantic social activity. You've found peace in your own thoughts, your own prayers, your own dreams. This contentment isn't resignation, it's foundation. It's the difference between being alone and being lonely. When you're truly content in your singleness, you stop seeking relationship from a place of lack and start approaching it from a place of abundance. You're no longer looking for someone to rescue you from solitude, but someone to share the richness you've discovered within it. There's something powerful that happens when you stop needing a relationship and start preparing for one. Your entire energy shifts. Instead of scanning every room for potential partners, you focus on becoming the kind of person you'd want to be with. Instead of forcing conversations and connections, you allow authentic relationships to unfold naturally. Instead of settling for attention, you hold out for intention. The fifth sign emerges in how you handle relationships around you. You find yourself genuinely celebrating when others find love instead of feeling envious or forgotten. Their joy doesn't diminish your hope. Their announcements don't trigger your insecurities. Their happiness actually strengthens your faith that love is possible, that God is still writing beautiful stories, and that your chapter is simply unfolding on a different timeline. This shift from comparison to celebration reveals something sacred happening in your heart. Jealousy is being replaced by joy. Bitterness is being transformed into blessing. You're discovering that there's enough love in this world for everyone, including you. When you can genuinely smile at someone else's engagement announcement, when you can attend weddings without feeling sorry for yourself, when you can offer relationship advice without cynicism, you're revealing a heart that's being prepared for its own love story. The sixth sign appears in your growing understanding of what true partnership means. Your vision of marriage begins to mature beyond fairy tale fantasies and social media highlights. You start to see relationship not as an escape from life's challenges, but as a sacred partnership to face them together. You begin to crave deep conversation more than constant entertainment. You desire spiritual alignment more than physical attraction. You long for someone who will pray with you through storms, not just celebrate with you in sunshine. The seventh sign reveals itself in your growing wisdom about timing. You begin to understand that love isn't just about finding the right person, but about being ready to receive them when they arrive. You stop rushing the process and start trusting it. You realize that every delay has been divine orchestration. Every closed door has been protection. Every season of waiting has been preparation for something your heart couldn't have imagined on its own. The eighth and final sign emerges as a quiet knowing that settles deep in your spirit. You feel a gentle shift in the atmosphere around your life. Doors that once felt permanently closed begin to creak open. Conversations that once felt forced now flow naturally. You sense movement in places that have been still for so long. Not because you're forcing anything, but because you've finally aligned with heaven's rhythm instead of fighting against it. These aren't dramatic signs that announce themselves with fanfare. They're whispers in the quiet moments, gentle confirmations in your spirit, a growing sense that something beautiful is being prepared behind the scenes of your life. You may not see the full picture yet, but you feel the shift. You sense the preparation. You know that your waiting hasn't been wasted. One day you'll look back and realize that the silence wasn't empty. It was the sound of your roots growing deeper, your foundation becoming stronger, your heart expanding to hold the love that was always meant for you. Every unanswered prayer was answered in a way you couldn't see. Every closed door led to an open window. Every season of solitude prepared you for sacred partnership. If this message reached you at the right time, take it as a quiet sign. Your waiting isn't wasted. You're being prepared for something sacred. Write Amen in the comments if you receive this message with faith, and subscribe for more reflections like this. Let's keep walking this path of peace and purpose together.